I wasn't planning to meet anyone, especially not someone like him. It was just groceries. I live alone. Small apartment, quiet life, predictable routine. Monday through Friday, I work remote from the kitchen table, eat the same rotation of meals, stream whatever's trending, and go to sleep around midnight. If I talk to anyone outside of meetings, it's usually the cashier at the coffee shop down the street or my neighbor's cat when it sneaks into my hallway. So yeah, not exactly living some chaotic, romantic, anything can happen lifestyle, which is why it threw me when, one evening, my grocery delivery came different. Normally, it's just a knock, a text, and a bag by the door. No eye contact, no interaction, just a "your order has been delivered" message. But this time, I opened the door, and there he was. "Hey," he said, holding the paper bag like it weighed nothing. "You, Alex?" I blinked. "Yeah, thanks." He smiled, a little crooked, easy, like he did it without thinking. He had this look about him that caught me off guard. Not movie star hot, but effortlessly good-looking, in a way that stuck. Dark hair under a cap, turned backwards, stubble just starting to form. Deep brown eyes that held eye contact a little longer than most people dared to. He didn't look like a delivery guy. He looked like someone who should have been at a dive bar, leaning against a jukebox, nursing a beer. Or maybe standing behind a camera, giving direction. There was something creative about his whole vibe. He handed me the bag and said, "Sorry if the oat milk's warm. I got caught in traffic." I almost laughed. It was November in Chicago. Nothing was warm. "It's fine," I replied, awkwardly, already aware I was staring too much. "Thanks." He nodded once, then walked off, hoodie pulled tight against the wind. I watched longer than I should have, the cold seeping into the doorway until I finally shut it and stepped back inside. I chalked it up to a weird little moment. A handsome guy delivering my groceries. That was it. Until I found the note. It was buried between the bag of rice and a pack of blueberries. A folded piece of lined paper. Not the store kind, not a receipt. It looked hand-torn from a notebook. I picked it up, confused, unfolded it. It looked kinda down. Hope things start looking up. Dax. J. I stood there, staring at the handwriting. My heart thudded once, slow and heavy. What the hell? I read it again. Hope things start looking up. What did that even mean? Did I look sad? I wasn't sad. I was just existing. Alone. Quietly. Did that read as sad? And who was Jay? I checked the bag again. Nothing else. No contact info, no follow-up, just that note. Just him. Whoever he was. I should have crumpled it up. Tossed it in the trash with the brown paper bag, told myself it was nothing, but instead, I stuck it on my fridge, right next to the Chinese takeout magnet, and a picture of me and my mom from 3 years ago. And for the rest of the night, I kept looking at it, wondering who writes a stranger a note like that, wondering what made him think I needed it, and wondering why he was right. The next few days after the grocery delivery felt like something was just off, not in a bad way. More like when you know something's about to happen, but you're not sure what it is. And I hated that feeling, the kind that gnaws at you when you can't put your finger on something, but it's definitely there. Something stirring in the air. I didn't expect it to come from him, the delivery guy. Jay. I kept thinking about the note. Every time I opened the fridge, every time I reached for something in the kitchen, there it was, that simple little message staring back at me. You looked kinda down. Hope things start looking up. Jay. I thought about throwing it away, but I didn't. Maybe it was because, for the first time in a long while, someone had acknowledged me. Not just, "Hey, here's your package," or "Thanks for shopping with us," but something real. A hint of care, a touch of understanding. It made my chest feel a little too full. And I hated that too. Why did a random grocery delivery person care about me? Was it a mistake? A fluke? I tried to shake it off. I had work to do. Always had work to do. I was busy. Like, overwhelmingly busy. Deadline after deadline, client after client. Nothing else had room to take up space. But as I made my coffee on that Thursday morning, the note was still on the fridge, and I found myself looking at it again. When had I become the kind of person who had to rely on random strangers to give me a sense of something? I took a sip of the lukewarm coffee I made too fast, setting it down next to my laptop and opening up a fresh email. I didn't see him again for another week. My life continued like it always did. I worked, I ate, I slept, then repeat. But every time I placed an order for groceries, I wondered, would it be him again? Would Jay show up again with that half smile and a note to make me feel like I wasn't invisible? It felt ridiculous, but that stupid little note became the highlight of my week. On Friday, my grocery order came in. I was at my desk, knee-deep in my work, headphones blaring a playlist of instrumentals that I'd been using as background noise for the past month. But then, a knock at the door. It wasn't the usual delivery time, so I immediately pulled off my headphones, setting them down carefully on the desk. I stood, heart beating a little faster than I expected, and walked to the door. When I opened it, there he was again. The guy from last week, Jay. Except this time there was no awkward silence. There was no hesitation, no uncertainty in the air. He looked at me like he knew exactly who I was. Like I wasn't just the faceless name on a grocery order anymore. "Hey, Alex." He greeted me with a smile that was both confident and warm. He stepped forward, holding the grocery bag, but it was different this time. His eyes weren't darting away, he was looking at me. Straight at me. "Hey," I managed to reply, feeling a little weird about how easily the word left my mouth. There was an undercurrent to his presence that had changed everything in that second. I was aware of every little movement. The way he adjusted his hoodie, the way his hand rested on the handle of the bag. I was acutely aware of his proximity, standing just an inch closer than I would have expected a delivery person to stand. "You were right, by the way," he said, as I took the bag from him. His voice was quieter now, like he was telling me a secret. "The oat milk's probably still warm?" He grinned, and there it was again, that little flash of a smile that felt too personal. I could feel myself blushing, embarrassed at how much attention I was giving to the moment, but then I managed to shake it off. "Thanks," I said again. "Got any plans tonight?" he asked, casually. But I felt like I was being read somehow, like he could see the tension that still hadn't left my body. It wasn't a question you ask a stranger delivering groceries. I stared at him. Just curious," he added, his gaze softening. "You seem like you've got a lot going on. It's good to take a break every once in a while." There was a pause. The words hung in the air between us. He wasn't forcing anything. He wasn't being too forward. But there was something intentional in his tone, something that made it feel like he wasn't talking about groceries anymore. Yeah, you're right. "I've been busy," I replied, still unsure of how to continue this. He was a stranger, a delivery person, and yet I felt like I was sharing more with him in this one moment than I had in the past week. "Well, I hope you do get some time to yourself. You need it." His smile was small, but it was genuine, and somehow that made my heart skip. "Thanks," I said, and I meant it. "I'll take it easy. You too." He nodded, turned to walk back down the hallway, but stopped just before he reached the stairs. He glanced over his shoulder at me. His eyes lingered, and for a split second, I thought I saw something in his expression. Something unspoken. Then he was gone, disappearing around the corner, leaving me standing there with my groceries and more than a few lingering thoughts. The rest of the night, I tried to focus on work, but it was nearly impossible. Every time I looked down at the groceries, my thoughts wandered back to him. Why did he keep coming? Why did he make it feel like there was more to this than just delivering food? And then I realized he wasn't just delivering groceries, he was delivering something else too. I didn't know what it was. I didn't even know if I should have wanted to find out. But I was going to. I couldn't stop thinking about him. Jay. Not in the obsessive love at first sight way. It wasn't that kind of story. More like this slow itch in my mind, an unresolved sentence I kept wanting to finish. He'd only shown up twice, both times delivering my groceries, both times leaving a part of himself behind. First, the note. Then, the look he gave me before he turned that corner and disappeared. That look stuck with me the most. The kind that made you feel like you'd just been seen. Not judged, not scanned, just noticed. And when you live your life mostly in silence, remote job, no social circle left in the city, parents who only text on birthdays, being noticed feels like a sudden floodlight in a world you've grown used to being dim. Saturday morning, I woke up groggy and unsettled. I'd gone to bed late and my dreams had been weirdly vivid. Not quite sexual, but definitely not innocent. All I remembered was standing in my kitchen, wearing the same hoodie I'd had on last night, and him, Jay, sitting on my counter like he belonged there. I shook it off, sat on the edge of the bed, and checked my phone. No texts, no notifications, just the usual junk. But my thumb hovered over the grocery app anyway. I didn't need anything, not urgently, but the idea formed so quickly that I barely questioned it. What if I placed a small order, just enough to justify a delivery? Just enough that someone, maybe him, would show up again. I stared at the screen, trying to rationalize it. Eggs? Bread? Coffee beans? Spinach. Nothing crazy. Just the things I knew I'd use. And I placed the order. I wasn't proud of it, but I did it anyway. The window said delivery within 2 hours. I spent that time pacing around the apartment, pretending to clean, rearranging the same stack of mail twice, refreshing the delivery status like a lunatic. And then, finally, the buzz at the door. I stood there for a beat, 1 breath, 2. Then I opened it, and there he was. Same denim jacket, same hoodie, beanie pulled low today, hair curling out from underneath. His eyes lit up, genuinely lit up when he saw me. "Well, hey," he said, and I swear to God, my stomach flipped like I was in high school again. "Hey," I replied, trying not to sound like I'd been waiting by the door. He handed me the small brown paper bag. "Wasn't sure I'd see you again," he said with a little grin. "I don't usually get the same customers twice." "I guess I'm predictable," I said. "Or lazy." He laughed softly. "I'll take it." Our fingers brushed as I took the bag from him. The kind of contact that shouldn't have meant anything, but suddenly did. His hand lingered for half a second, longer than necessary, and then he let go. "Nice place," he said, peering past me into the apartment. "You always keep it this quiet?" "Pretty much," I said, leaning slightly against the doorframe. "Quiet's my normal." "I get that." His voice dropped just a little. "Sometimes it's easier than trying to fill it with noise that doesn't really help." I didn't respond right away, because I knew exactly what he meant. The kind of silence you get used to. The kind that wraps around you like a blanket until one day you realize you're just floating. Before I could come up with a reply, he pulled something from the pocket of his jacket. Folded paper. My stomach tightened immediately. Another note. "Hope this one isn't weird," he said, suddenly shy. "It's just, I don't know, felt like maybe I should." He held it out and I took it without saying anything. The edges were creased, like he'd folded and unfolded it more than once. Then he scratched the back of his neck. "I should let you go. You probably have, whatever, Saturday plans." I nodded, even though I didn't. "Thanks again," I said, holding the bag in one hand, the note in the other. He gave me one last look, the kind that made something twist in my chest, then turned to leave. I didn't close the door right away. I watched him walk all the way to the elevator at the end of the hall, his figure shrinking until the doors swallowed him whole. Then I went inside. I didn't even unpack the groceries. I just unfolded the note and sat down at the table to read it. It said, "Sometimes it's the quiet ones that feel the most. Just thought you should know. You've got a presence. Don't let the silence tell you otherwise. Jay." I read it 3 times, then a 4th, and this weird warmth spread through my chest. Not heat, not excitement, just warmth, like a candle had been lit inside me that hadn't burned in a long, long time. What was he trying to say? Why me? I didn't know, but I wanted to find out. I kept the second note next to the first one. Both stuck to the fridge door, side by side, held up by an old souvenir magnet from a trip I barely remembered. Every time I went to grab something, milk, butter, leftovers, I had to look at them. And every time I did. Don't let the silence tell you otherwise. That line haunted me. Because the truth was, silence had been saying a lot of things lately. That I was forgettable, invisible, easy to ignore. I hadn't been on a real date in over a year, and the last guy the first tried talking to ghosted before we even got past swapping Spotify playlists. So yeah, the silence had its own voice. But Jay, this delivery guy the first barely knew, had somehow looked at me and seen something else. That was the part one couldn't let go of. Sunday came and went in a haze. I pretended to be productive. I deep cleaned the kitchen, organized my desktop, answered emails I'd been putting off. But in the background, his voice looped in my head. That subtle, careful tone. Like he didn't want to say too much, but needed to say something. I wanted to know more. I wanted to ask questions. So I did the only thing I could think of. I placed another order. It felt borderline pathetic. 3 orders in 8 days. But I didn't care. It wasn't about needing food. It was about finding out if whatever was happening between us was in my head, or if he felt it too. And when the knock came at 6:48 p.m., I already knew it would be him. This time, I opened the door faster than usual, and he was already smiling when I did. "Thought I might see you again," he said. "You're pretty much the highlight of my week," I replied, then immediately wanted to pull the words back. Too much? Too honest? But he didn't flinch. Instead, he smiled wider. Slow and warm, like something in him eased up just a bit. "That's so?" he said. "Guess I should make sure I keep showing up." He handed me the bag, heavier than usual, and I instinctively looked inside. There was something different about this one. Sitting right on top, half tucked under a box of cereal, was a can of cold brew I definitely hadn't ordered. It wasn't just extra. It was a favorite brand I hadn't bought in months. I raised an eyebrow. "This wasn't on my list." "I know," he said. "I figured you might need it. You seem like the kind of guy who drinks cold brew at night, but pretends it won't affect his sleep." I stared at him, and then I laughed. "Because he wasn't wrong. I'll pay you for it. Don't worry about it." There was a pause then. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other. He didn't leave, didn't rush, just stood there like he wasn't sure what came next either. "You always leave notes for people?" I asked, testing the waters. He scratched his jaw. "Not really, just felt like, I don't know, you look like you needed one." "I probably did," I admitted. And then something shifted between us. The playfulness faded. The air got heavier, quieter, but not in a bad way, not uncomfortable. He looked at me for a long second, his expression unreadable. And then he said, "Can I ask something weird?" I nodded. "Would you ever want to get a drink or something?" "I mean, if that's not crossing a line." I blinked. My stomach dropped, but in the best way. That roller coaster feeling, just as it crests. "You're asking me out?" He half smiled, clearly trying not to look nervous. "I mean, I figured if I keep delivering to your door, eventually you're going to figure out I'm not just doing it for the tips." I was quiet for a second too long. He started to backpedal. "It's totally cool if that's weird, or you're seeing someone, or—" "I'm not," I interrupted, "and it's not weird." His shoulders relaxed slightly. "I'd like that," I said. He grinned. "For real this time, bigger than before." "Cool. I'm off Thursday night. I know a decent place near the lake." "Text me the details?" I asked. He pulled a small scrap of paper from his back pocket, clearly prepped, and handed it to me. It had his name, Julian, and a number. His handwriting was the same as the notes. "I'll text you tonight," I said, already knowing I would. He nodded. "Looking forward to it." And then, for the first time, he walked away, and I didn't feel like he was disappearing. It felt more like something beginning. That night, I stood in my kitchen, sipping the cold brew he'd picked for me. The 2 notes still hung in the fridge. But now, next to them, was something else. His number. And my name written in his handwriting. Thursday night couldn't come fast enough. I spent most of the day pretending to work, answering emails with half my brain, staring at the same design draft for hours without changing a thing. My mind wasn't on deadlines or client revisions. It was on Julian. We'd been texting casually since Sunday. Not a lot, just enough to keep the thread alive. Jokes about caffeine addictions, random song recommendations, quick check-ins like, "Hope your day wasn't total garbage." And every time my phone buzzed and it was him, I felt a weird warmth crawl up the back of my neck. He had a dry sense of humor. Subtle. Smart. Like he only said what mattered. And now we were supposed to meet at a bar near the lake. One of those low-lit places with cracked leather booths and bartenders who actually know what they're doing. I got there 10 minutes early because of course I did. Sat at the bar, ordered a gin and tonic, and pretended to scroll through my phone like I wasn't watching the door every 5 seconds. Then I saw him. Same denim jacket, sleeves rolled up, a different hoodie underneath this time, forest green. His hair was still messy, his beanie shoved in his back pocket. But what really caught me was his expression when he saw me. Not surprise, not nervousness, just this calm certainty. Like, yeah, this is exactly where he wanted to be. He slid onto the stool next to me. "You clean up well," he said. I laughed. "This is my one going out outfit, so I hope you like it." He grinned. "I do." We ordered drinks, talked. And from the first few minutes, it just worked. No awkward pauses, no weird silences. Just two guys leaning toward each other in a noisy bar like the rest of the room didn't matter. I learned he was 27, a year older than me. Grew up a few suburbs away. Used to play drums in a band before switching to part-time delivery work while figuring out what the hell he wanted to do next. "Trying not to waste my 20s entirely," he said, with a shrug that felt more honest than sad. "I think we all are," I said. "Failing gracefully is the dream, right?" He smiled. "You seem like you have it together." That made me laugh. "I literally ordered groceries 3 times in 1 week just to see you." He blinked, then smirked. "Okay, maybe you're the one who has it together." And for a moment, everything around us blurred out. The hum of conversation, the clinking of glasses, the low music in the background, all of it disappeared. It was just the two of us. Looking at each other like this wasn't a first date at all, but something we were picking up mid-story. I felt it right then. The shift. Something real. After the second round of drinks, we moved to one of those shadowy booths in the back. Close enough to feel the heat between us, not touching, but almost. And that space, that tiny space between our knees, between his shoulder and mine, became electric. "So," he said, nursing the last sip of his drink, "when do I get to deliver groceries and stay for dinner?" I raised an eyebrow. "You trying to get a meal out of me already?" "Only if it's with you." I felt my face flush, but I didn't look away. "Next week," I said. "I'll cook." "Deal." A beat passed. He was quiet for a second, then asked, "Can I be honest?" "Please do." "I wasn't sure you'd text me. I left that second note thinking it might have been a step too far." "It wasn't. You just looked like you needed something real. And I guess I've been needing that too." I nodded slowly. The words settled between us like something we both recognized but didn't want to name too fast. He leaned in a little. Not rushing, not assuming, just enough to close some of the space between us. And I met him halfway. The kiss wasn't dramatic. It wasn't fireworks or violins or anything you see in a movie. It was real, warm, slow. Like we both wanted to say, "I see you," without using words. When we pulled back, neither of us said anything right away. He exhaled, smiled, then murmured, "That's going to make the next grocery delivery a little complicated." I laughed, because it already was. We didn't make out in the booth. We didn't rush home. We just sat there, a little buzzed, a little dazed, soaking in the fact that something was happening. Something neither of us expected. Later, as we said goodnight outside the bar, he gave me that look again. The one that made me feel not just seen, but chosen. "Text me when you get home?" he asked. I nodded. "Only if you promise to keep sneaking notes into my cereal." He smirked. "Deal." and then he was gone, disappearing down the sidewalk, hoodie pulled up against the cold. I stood there for a second, heart thudding, and I smiled. Because for once, I wasn't just waiting for the next delivery. I was waiting for him. It's funny how fast something can shift from feeling new to feeling natural. Like once it clicks, you start forgetting what life felt like before it. That's how it was with Julian. After that night at the bar, we didn't talk every second of every day. That wasn't our style. But the thread between us never went cold. Little messages, check-ins, a dumb meme at 11 p.m., a blurry photo of something ridiculous he saw on the street. I started to look forward to them. I started to need them. The following Tuesday, he came over for dinner like we'd planned. I'd cleaned my apartment like I was trying to impress a landlord, not a guy who'd seen the inside of my fridge twice already. I didn't go overboard with the food. Just some pasta, garlic bread, and wine. Enough to show effort without screaming. I YouTubed date night recipes for 4 hours. He showed up 10 minutes late with a bottle of red in one hand and a bakery bag in the other. I brought backup, he said, handing me the wine. And dessert. Figured you'd probably burn something. I didn't, I said smugly. But now if it tastes bad, I have something to blame it on. He grinned. You're welcome. It was easy, being around him. There wasn't pressure to be charming or smooth or perfect. We ate at the table, then moved to the couch. He sank into the cushions like he belonged there. Legs sprawled, head tilted back, fingers idly playing with the cuff of his sleeve. We talked about dumb stuff, work, music, that one awful Tinder date he had last year with a guy who claimed to be an emotional minimalist. What does that even mean? I asked, laughing. He had a spreadsheet of his past relationships. Oh my God, color-coded by intensity. You're lying. I wish I were. I couldn't stop laughing. And maybe it was the wine, or maybe it was just the warmth of having him in my space. But somewhere in the middle of that laughter, I realized how much lighter I felt. Like I'd been holding my breath for longer than I knew. And now, finally, I was exhaling. Eventually, the room went quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty. I looked over at him and found him already watching me, that same softness in his eyes. You always this hard to read? He asked. I blinked. What do you mean? He shrugged. I don't know. You've got this stillness about you. Like you're waiting for someone else to make the first move. I thought about that for a second. Maybe I am. He nodded, like he understood more than I was saying. You don't have to wait with me. The words sat heavy in the air, not pushy, not loaded, just open. An invitation. So I leaned in. This time, the kiss was slower, deeper. Not just a first date spark, but something heavier. His hand slid behind my neck, his thumb brushing my jaw, and I let myself fall into it. Fully, no holding back. Eventually, we broke apart, and he leaned his forehead against mine. This okay? He asked. Yeah, I breathed. It's more than okay. He didn't stay the night. We weren't there yet. But when he left, he squeezed my hand like a promise and said, next time, I'll bring dinner. Deal. After he left, I cleaned up the glasses, turned off the lights, and noticed something I hadn't before. There was a folded piece of paper on the counter, tucked under the bakery bag. I smiled before I even opened it. This doesn't feel like a delivery anymore. It feels like I've been finding pieces of you, one bag at a time. Jay. I read it 3 times, heart tight in the best way. And I knew, without question, this was different. He wasn't just some guy who happened to drop into my life. He was choosing to stay. The night Julian brought dinner, it rained so hard, we couldn't hear the movie we were pretending to watch. He came in soaked, holding 2 takeout containers above his head like they were precious cargo. Water dripping from his jacket onto my welcome mat. This is not how I pictured arriving, he said, shaking out his hair. I tossed him a towel, laughing. You look like a wet dog. You're lucky I like you. He peeled off his hoodie, revealing a plain black t-shirt clinging to his chest. I tried not to stare, but I think he caught me. He didn't say anything, just raised an eyebrow like he was filing the moment away for later. Dinner was on the floor in front of my couch. No candles, no playlist, just the soft percussion of rain against the windows and the occasional rumble of thunder in the distance. I don't remember what we ate. I remember the way he looked at me while he talked, the way his voice got lower when he started telling stories about his family, his mom, who raised him alone, his older brother, who lived out in Colorado and rarely called, his dad, who left when Julian was 7. "I used to wait by the window for him," he said, his voice steady but distant. "Every Saturday. For months!" I didn't say anything, just listened. The space between us didn't feel casual anymore. It felt full of history, of things unspoken, things that needed the safety of a quiet room to finally come out. He turned to me, his eyes darker now, more serious. "I know it's early," he said, "but being around you, it doesn't feel early. It just feels right." I wasn't expecting that. Not from him. Not then. But I didn't flinch. "I know what you mean," I said. "Like we didn't start at the beginning, like we were already partway through." Julian smiled, but there was a flicker of fear in it, like he was still waiting for me to pull away. Instead, I leaned in, and this time, we didn't stop at a kiss. I didn't rush. Neither did he. It was slow, quiet, careful, not in a hesitant way, but in a way that felt intentional. Every movement felt like a conversation, like we were learning each other without needing words. We undressed with the lights still on, not bright, not harsh, just enough glow from the hallway lamp to see each other clearly. He looked at me like he wanted to memorize everything, and I let him. His hands were warm, gentle, curious. We made out for what felt like hours, just touching, breathing, pressing closer until there was no more space to close. When he finally pushed me gently back against the couch cushions and lay on top of me, our foreheads pressed together, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Safe, seen, wanted. He didn't ask for more that night. He could have. I would have said yes, but instead, he just held me. One hand resting over my chest, the other tangled in my fingers, and we stayed like that until the storm faded and our breathing matched. "I used to think the silence meant no one saw me," I whispered. He pulled back just enough to look at me. "Me too," and then he kissed me again. This one wasn't for fun. It wasn't playful. It was a thank you, a promise. Julian didn't leave that night. He stayed. And when I woke up the next morning to the smell of coffee and the sound of him humming in my kitchen like it was the most natural thing in the world, I knew I didn't want to go back to life before him. It's weird how fast someone can feel like home. A month ago, I was living in a silent apartment with a fridge full of forgotten groceries and a to-do list longer than my patience. Now I was making pancakes on a Sunday morning, while Julian stood behind me, his arms wrapped loosely around my waist, chin resting on my shoulder. "Don't burn them," he murmured against my neck. "I've made pancakes before. You also put salt in your coffee last week." "One time," I said, trying not to smile. His laughter buzzed warm in my ear. I could feel it in my chest. We didn't have a label for whatever this was. Not yet. But it was real. It was consistent. It was us. He wasn't delivering groceries anymore. He was staying over, cooking with me, leaving a toothbrush in my bathroom drawer without saying a word. Sometimes we still talked about how weird it was, how it all started with a note in a paper bag, how two people with barely a reason to meet ended up falling into something this steady, this safe. I almost didn't write that first one. He told me once, curled up with his head in my lap while we watched some slow burn drama neither of us were paying attention to. "Why did you?" he shrugged. "You looked like you needed someone to say it, even if it was just a stranger." "Thank you for not being a creep about it," he grinned up at me. "I was worried you'd report me. I thought about it," I teased. But really I hadn't. Because even in that first moment, when he handed me the bag and walked away, I'd felt something shift. It was small, almost invisible. But I knew. I felt seen. One night, about 6 weeks in, we were walking back from a bar, tipsy, fingers loosely laced, shoulders bumping under the streetlights. It was one of those cold city nights where you could see your breath but didn't really care. "I've got a question," he said, his voice softer than usual. "Shoot." He hesitated. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't been your delivery guy that day?" I thought about it for a second, then shook my head. "I don't think about that." "Why not?" "Because you were." He smiled, pulling me closer, and I rested my head against his shoulder as we walked. Sometimes I still find little notes from him in my coat pocket, inside the cabinet where I keep my coffee. Once, on the back of a receipt stuck between pages of a book I hadn't opened in weeks. They're not long. They're not poetic. Just a few honest words that always hit me right where I need them. "You're doing better than you think. Stop checking your email. Come kiss me instead. I've never felt more at home than in your kitchen." And one time, folded neatly into my glove compartment, found on a cold morning when I was late for work and frustrated at the world. He left this. "You were never invisible. You were just waiting for the right eyes to see you." I sat in the car and cried for 10 minutes. Then I drove home. And when I walked through the door, there he was. Sitting on my couch, half asleep in my hoodie, waiting for me. No words, no questions, just us. And suddenly, everything felt so simple, so obvious, so damn right.